Have you ever wondered what lies beneath those flawless family photos, where every smile shines as radiant as Houston's summer sun? Brace yourself, for this tale will usher you into a home that seems warm and welcoming, yet harbors secrets darker than the deepest night. Layers of lies stacked high, millions vanishing like smoke, and a girl once thought forgotten, rising to rewrite her destiny. Don't blink, for in a mere flicker, you might miss the moment justice unfurls its wings and honesty blazes like a lighthouse amid the wreckage of a fractured family storm. Beneath the dazzling morning sun, as the first rays slipped through Houston's towering skyscrapers, Emily Lauren settled at her desk. 7 years had passed since she embarked on her journey as a senior designer at a prestigious advertising firm, and each day, the spark of creativity within her burned as fiercely as ever, fueled by the gentle sunlight streaming through her window. On her desk, neat as a masterpiece, stood a solitary frame holding her graduation photo, a quiet testament to her steadfast independence. Emily, her ponytail tied with meticulous care as if it were a declaration of precision, donned a sea blue blouse, simple yet sophisticated, paired with sleek gray trousers that exuded poise. Her colleagues dubbed her the Queen of Perfection, a title laced with both admiration and a hint of distance. They kept their space, yet none could deny her work set a benchmark few could rival. With a deep breath, Emily sipped her fragrant coffee, that rich black elixir her loyal companion through busy mornings. She skimmed her inbox, her gaze pausing as a message from her mother blinked insistently in the corner, a nagging reminder she couldn't ignore. Hesitating as if standing before a door she wasn't sure she wished to open, Emily finally clicked. "Emily, I haven't heard back about your father's birthday party next Sunday. Victoria even took time off work for it. Quite special." Her mother Hannah's words sliced through the screen like an unseen blade. Emily sighed, eyes glued to the monitor, her heart heavy as if carrying Houston's gloomiest skies. Hannah, her mother, had devoted 27 years to teaching English at Blue Bottle High School in Houston's suburbs, a paragon of motherhood in everyone's eyes. Students adored her dedication, colleagues revered her professionalism, and at home, she shone like a guiding lighthouse. Yet that light seemed brightest when it fell upon Victoria, the youngest daughter pampered like a precious gem. "I'll reply later," Emily muttered, marking the email read, and shoving it to a corner of her mind, much like she tucked away her tangled family feelings. She didn't want to attend her father's birthday, not out of disdain, but because of the invisible chasms between them. Her father Jacob had been a sales director at a local real estate firm for over 2 decades. A sociable, affable man, he greeted clients with a warm smile and earned their respect. Yet at home, he faded into a shadow beside her mother, deferring to her opinions and rarely bridging the silent tensions between his daughters. To Emily, their bond was one of surface respect. He beamed at her stellar grades and career triumphs, but never ventured past the unseen wall to touch her soul. Instead, his gaze always drifted to Victoria, the dazzling sister who shone like summer's sun. The mere mention of Victoria's name sent Emily's heart spiraling into a whirlwind of emotions. Victoria, with her golden hair and ocean blue eyes, once a cheerleading captain, now dazzled in the personal banking division of First National Bank. Whispers of her imminent promotion to assistant branch manager buzzed like an endless tune. Her life was a parade of brilliance. Weekend parties with friends, lavish trips, and their mother's boundless affection. In a fleeting moment of vulnerability, Emily had whispered to herself, "This isn't jealousy, just plain truth." Years of watching family gatherings had etched a vivid picture. Hannah would gush over Victoria with sparkling eyes, while Emily's achievements earned only polite nods, a formality as stiff as a handshake. Suddenly her phone buzzed, the screen flashing "Grandpa." Emily's face softened like sunlight-piercing clouds. It was Christian, her grandfather, a former judge and millionaire with a heart as warm as a hearth, the one family member she could bare her soul to. "Good morning, Grandpa," she answered, her voice a rare melody in the day. "Morning, Emily. How's my girl?" Christian's voice rumbled, cozy as tea on a winter's day. "I'm fine, just swamped. How about you?" "Still keeping the young ones in line," he chuckled, his hearty laugh sweeping away her burdens. "About your dad's birthday party, will you come, won't you?" Emily faltered, her hands clenching as if to hold back her reply. "I haven't decided, work's overwhelming." On the other end his tone deepened, wise as a river through time. I get it, Emily. I know family gatherings can weigh on you. But could you come for me? I'm old. There aren't many chances left for us all to be together. His words pierced her armor like a needle. Closing her eyes, she pressed a hand to her forehead, her resolve melting like butter in the sun. All right, Grandpa, I'll be there, she said, voice trembling. That eases my heart. Oh, I read about your project last month. Brilliant. Your talent's the real deal. Tears welled silently as his praise washed over her. A spring rain on parched soil. Hanging up, Emily sat still, her gaze drifting out the window. Since childhood, she'd felt like a lone bird in the flock. Earnest and sincere, her family branded her dull and rigid. Over the years, the rift widened, save for her bond with Grandpa. Invitations to gatherings dwindled. Even Christmas and Thanksgiving brought the same old line. Emily's probably too busy. Partly true, but they never knew she sometimes packed her schedule tight. A shield against the sting of exclusion. Watching the sunlight dance on the skyscrapers, Emily wondered. Would her family ever truly see her? Or was she doomed to linger as a faint shadow on the edge of their radiant tale? Emily swiveled her office chair. The soft creak of its wheels rolling across the wooden floor echoing like a mournful melody in the stillness. She opened the calendar on her computer screen, her fingers gliding lightly over the keyboard, checking if next Sunday lay open. Dad's birthday party, she typed slowly, each letter a quiet stab at her fragile pride. Saving the entry, she muttered with a bitter edge. Wonder what excuses I'll hear this time? Emily's too busy, she won't make it. Or, oh, I thought you didn't like parties. The faint smile on her lips dissolved as quickly as it came, leaving a cavernous void in her chest. A place where the yearning for family connection tangled with the dread of rejection. Two sides of a restless coin that never settled. On Saturday afternoon, the day before her father's birthday, Emily stood on her mother's porch, her gray flat speckled with dust from Houston's bustling streets. She wasn't there for a warm visit or idle chit-chat, but for a reason as pragmatic as it was dry. Her home printer had surrendered at the worst moment, just when she needed to rush print reference materials for a new design project, with deadlines stalking her like a relentless predator. The doorbell chimed and Hannah, her mother, appeared, opening the door with a polished smile, as if she were a TV host greeting a guest. Emily, you're here, she said, offering a perfunctory hug, brief and stiff, more a social ritual than a mother's embrace. Perfect timing. Victoria just stepped out to buy party decorations, and I've ordered the cake. Hannah's voice was flat, like a newsreader delivering a story that had nothing to do with her daughter. Thanks, Mom, Emily replied softly, steadying her tone to hide the tremor within. Can I use the printer? Oh, of course, go to the study, Hannah answered, then added as an afterthought. By the way, have you picked a gift for your dad? Emily managed a small smile, just enough to mask the undercurrent of turmoil. Yes, I found a vintage watch he's wanted for ages. Oh, how nice, Hannah said, her tone devoid of enthusiasm, as if commenting on the weather. Victoria got him a golf set. He'll be over the moon. Emily nodded silently, her feet dragging as she climbed the stairs to the study, each of her mother's words a hidden needle piercing her heart. Hannah always did this, whether by accident or design, placing Emily and Victoria on opposite ends of a scale that never balanced. Stepping into the study, Emily powered on the computer, only to be met by a password screen, a wall barring her way. Mom, what's the password? She called downstairs, her voice wavering from the effort of shouting. Hannah appeared at the staircase, phone in hand, sighing as if interrupted mid-movie. Oh, I forgot, I changed it last week. Use my phone instead, it's faster. You emailed the files, right? She unlocked her iPhone and handed it over with the air of granting a favor. Here, take it. I need to confirm the cake one last time. I'll be back in 30 minutes. Thanks, Mom, Emily said, her voice light as a breeze, secretly relieved as Hannah left, granting her a rare sliver of solitude. She opened the email app on her mother's phone, located her sent files, downloaded the attachments, and sent them to the printer. The machine hummed to life, its clumsy symphony breaking the room's quiet. Waiting, Emily's fingers drifted aimlessly across the home screen, her eyes catching on a folder labeled Private Albums. Private albums? She whispered, so faint even she barely heard it. Curiosity, like a mischievous cat, nudged her to tap it. The screen bloomed with dozens of photo albums, their titles magnetic: Victoria's Birthday, San Francisco Trip 2024, Christmas Dinner, Family Weekend. Emily frowned, a strange unease bubbling up. "I've never heard of these," she murmured, her trembling finger opening Victoria's Birthday. The photos unfolded like a silent, vibrant film. Victoria at the center, her smile blazing like the sun, before a lavish birthday cake. Around her were their parents, friends, relatives, all beaming with joy. Emily's jaw dropped, her heart pounding. 3 months ago? I wasn't invited, she muttered, her voice quivering like an autumn leaf. Next, she opened San Francisco Trip 2024. Images of her parents and Victoria basking on Miami's radiant beaches flashed up, dated the very week she'd been told no family trip was planned because of her presentation. "They lied to me," she whispered, her voice cracking like shattered glass. Then came Christmas dinner last Christmas, when she'd been assured nothing special was happening, leaving her alone in her frigid apartment. Yet the photos told a different tale. The family gathered around a lavish feast, even Grandpa Christian there, grinning beside Victoria. Her heart squeezed tight. Emily clicked on Family Weekend, revealing a cascade of dazzling snapshots, none featuring her, not once. She scrolled through album after album, picture after picture, tears streaming down her cheeks unnoticed. "Why?" she asked herself, her voice choked as if trapped in her throat. The printer had long fallen silent, but she paid it no mind. Suddenly, the downstairs door creaked open. "Emily, done printing yet?" Hannah's voice called, yanking her back to reality. She hurriedly reset the phone, wiping tears with her sleeve, though the ache in her chest refused to fade. "Yes, I'm done," she replied, her voice trembling on the verge of breaking. Hannah entered, eyeing her with mild surprise. "Leaving already?" "Yes, I've got work," Emily said, avoiding her mother's gaze, hastily stuffing papers into her bag. "I'll see you at the party tomorrow, right?" Hannah asked, her tone casual, unconcerned. Emily nodded wordlessly, rushing downstairs to the front door. "Emily, are you okay? What's wrong?" Hannah called after her, but she only answered curtly, "Nothing, see you tomorrow." The door slammed shut, and in her car, she pressed her forehead to the steering wheel, tears falling like rain. The unease she'd carried for years now stood stark and undeniable. She wasn't just distant. She'd been deliberately cast aside by her family. Back at her apartment, Emily tossed and turned, streetlights slicing through the curtains like blades carving her shattered dreams, leaving her in a long sleepless night filled with unanswered questions. Night descended like a pitch-black curtain, drawing Emily into the deep alleys of memory. She lay there on the cold single bed in her small apartment, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling as if to pierce through the darkness. Her family's words echoed in her mind, sharp as daggers. "Emily's too busy. Emily probably doesn't care. Don't tell Emily, she'll just get upset." Once they were fleeting remarks like wind rustling through leaves, but now, after what she'd uncovered on her mother's phone, they transformed into icy slashes, carving a painful truth into her soul. She had never truly belonged to that family. As the first rays of morning sun slipped through the curtains, radiant like a belated consolation, Emily sat up, her trembling hands clutching her phone. With a resolve as cold as steel, she typed a terse message to every family member. "Don't contact me again." Her fingers moved swiftly, blocking each number, each social media account, severing the invisible threads that had bound her for so long. A strange sensation surged within, freedom like a bird escaping its cage, yet mingled with a piercing sadness, as bleak as a snowless winter. 3 months passed and Houston welcomed spring with warm breezes and blooming flowers, a symphony of renewal that resonated with Emily's shifting spirit. She threw herself into work like a moth chasing light, turning her pain into a wellspring of creativity. Her reputation in the advertising world, already solid, now shone brighter than ever. Just a month ago, she clinched a prestigious award for a major beverage company's campaign, the gleaming trophy on her shelf a testament to her undeniable talent. Sipping her steaming coffee, Emily stood by her office window, her gaze drifting over Houston's skyline, the skyscrapers reaching proud and tall, yet powerless to fill the hollow in her heart. The ache lingered, a stubborn old wound that flared up amid her calmest days. "Fancy trying a new yoga class with me?" Jordan, her close colleague, popped by her desk, his cheerful voice ringing like wind chimes in the summer noon. "They say the instructor's top-notch this weekend." Emily smiled, a rare but warm curve of her lips. Jordan had become an unexpected beacon in her lonely days since cutting ties with her family. A friend who never judged, simply there when she needed him. "Sounds good, I'd like to give it a go," she replied, her tone soft as a spring breeze. Suddenly her phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. Normally, she'd let it sink into oblivion with the countless pointless calls, but this time an odd instinct urged her to answer. "Hello." Her voice quivered slightly. "Emily, it's Grandpa." Her heart thudded as Christian's voice, warm and familiar like an old melody, filled her ear. "Sorry for calling from a new number. I heard you've blocked everyone in the family." Emily sprang up, darting to the meeting room for a private nook, clutching the phone as if it might slip away. "I didn't mean to block you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "No need to explain, I understand," Christian replied, his tone steady yet tinged with a deep sorrow, like a lake rippling under moonlight. "But I've got something to tell you. Can you come to my place tonight?" Emily hesitated, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt, a nervous habit from days gone by. "What's it about, Grandpa? I need to say it in person. This isn't a phone conversation." His voice turned urgent, a stark contrast to his usual calm. "All right," she sighed, yielding to his earnestness. "I'll be there at 6. Hanging up, Emily stood by the window, peering down at Houston's bustling traffic. The thought of seeing her grandfather stirred a cocktail of feelings. Anticipation laced with unease, like standing before a door whose destination she couldn't foresee. Christian Lauren's mansion nestled in an upscale neighborhood in North Houston, where ancient oaks shaded the streets and grand homes stood like miniature castles amid everyday life. Emily drove through the imposing stone gate, her headlights casting beams on a meticulously tended garden, spring blossoms vying to outshine one another like a living canvas. She pressed the doorbell, her heart racing like a child's on her first visit to Santa's house. Geralda, the housekeeper, greeted her with a gentle smile and a measured gait. "Miss Emily, come in." She was led through a spacious hallway, where antique paintings hung like silent storytellers of a once happy family. In the study, Christian sat on a polished leather chair by the fireplace, the crackling flames dancing to the rhythm of his breath. His demeanor remained dignified, though his shoulders seemed thinner, his silver hair bearing a few more strands of time's mark. "I'm glad you came," Christian said, rising to envelop her in a hug. Emily melted into his embrace, savoring the rare warmth of kinship. "I'm glad to see you too," she whispered, her voice catching as if on the brink of tears. He gestured to the chair across from him, the firelight casting golden streaks across his weathered face. "First, I want you to know I don't blame you for your choice," he began, his voice deep as a river's flow. Emily nodded, waiting in silence. "You know about the photos, don't you?" he pressed on, his gaze tender yet piercing. "Hannah told me you saw them." Tears welled up and Emily bowed her head, her voice shaking. "Why, Grandpa? Why was I the only one left out?" Christian sighed, his trembling hands resting on hers. "That's exactly what I want to talk to you about tonight," he said, his words a promise in the dark, unlocking a door she'd long awaited to reveal the truth. Grandpa Christian slowly stood up, his tall, lean figure casting a shadow on the wooden wall under the flickering light of the crackling fireplace. He walked over to the ancient bookshelf, where thick, dust-covered books lay silent like quiet storytellers of time. With hands trembling from age, he pulled down an old leather-bound album, its cover etched with lines resembling the wrinkles of a weathered face. "This is the family history I've recorded over the years," he said, his deep voice resonating like a distant church bell. Emily took the album from his hands, her palm brushing against the cool leather, feeling as though she were holding a gateway to the past. She opened it, and the yellowed pages unfolded like pieces of a strange yet familiar puzzle. Family photos she had never seen before appeared before her eyes. Her mother, Hannah, as a little girl with a radiant smile next to a Christmas tree. Her grandparents in festive attire, holding sparkling wine glasses. And then, "Who's this?" Emily gasped, her finger pausing on an old photograph. "That's your mother and her sister, your Aunt Evelyn," Christian replied, his voice gentle but tinged with a deep sorrow. Emily frowned, her mind spinning as if caught in a whirlwind. Mom had a sister? Why have I never heard of her? Christian sat down, his eyes heavy with a sadness like a winter lake. Evelyn passed away 30 years ago in a horrific car accident. A loss our family has never truly recovered from. Emily turned the pages, her eyes fixed on Aunt Evelyn's image, a woman who looked eerily like her mother, from the glossy brown hair to the refined facial features, yet her eyes radiated a warmth and openness, like spring sunlight piercing a cold winter day. But what does this have to do with me, with the cracks in our family? She asked, her voice trembling like a taut string. Christian sighed, his breath like a breeze carrying distant memories. Hannah and Evelyn were always opposites. Evelyn was vibrant like the sun, sociable, loved by everyone. Hannah was the opposite, quiet, introspective, and sometimes so envious it tormented her. After Evelyn's death, Hannah changed. The darker corners of her personality sharpened, like a blade hidden beneath soft fabric. He paused, looking straight at Emily, his eyes glinting like the fire in the hearth. You're like Evelyn, Emily. Not just in looks, your hair, your graceful frame, but in your honesty, your kindness, and the way you quietly persevere. To your mother, that might be a mirror reflecting a past she doesn't want to face. Emily was speechless, her gaze locked on Aunt Evelyn's photo, as if searching for an explanation in that face forever frozen in memory. But that's no excuse. Christian's voice suddenly grew firm, like thunder in a still sky. What Hannah, Victoria, and Jacob did to you is unforgivable. They pushed you to the edges, lied to you, and worse, lied to me. Emily looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks. They told me there was no family gathering, when the truth was the opposite. They told me, Emily's too busy. Emily doesn't care. And I believed them. I was such a fool. Christian slammed his fist lightly on the table, his eyes red with anger and regret. Didn't you suspect anything? Emily whispered, her voice breaking like shattering glass. Never. Christian replied, his tone resolute as a rock in a river. Last month Victoria came to me, tears streaming down her face. She told me everything, perhaps out of guilt. Your distance shook her. She always followed her mother, but this time it seems her heart couldn't bear it anymore. Emily looked up, stunned beyond belief. Victoria! She couldn't fathom that her glamorous younger sister, always the center of attention, could feel remorse over her. Christian stood and walked to his desk with slow but determined steps. I've made a decision, Emily. Next Saturday, I'm hosting a special dinner right here. I'll invite the whole family. Emily's jaw dropped, her mind a tangled mess. What? But why? I want you there, Christian said, his gaze stern yet warm like a street lamp in the dark. This isn't just a reunion. I have something to say to everyone in your presence. Emily shook her head, bewildered. What are you planning, Grandpa? It sounds like you're plotting a grand drama. Christian smiled, a rare mischievous grin lighting up his aged face. I'm proud of you, of your strength and sincerity. It's time the family sees that. Emily took a deep breath, trying to sort through the chaos of emotions swirling inside her. Face the family again? She felt like a soldier heading into battle without armor. But looking into her grandfather's fiercely determined eyes, she couldn't refuse. All right, Grandpa, I'll come. She nodded, her voice faint as a passing breeze. Good choice, Christian replied, his tone satisfied like a king who'd won a chess match. I'll send formal invitations, and the dress code is elegant. I want that evening to be memorable, an unforgettable reunion. As Emily left the room, she paused at the door and turned back to her grandfather. Are you sure? It feels like you're scheming something big. Christian laughed heartily, his voice echoing through the wooden room. Don't worry, Emily. It's time the truth comes to light, like the sun breaking through the fog. That's all. He winked, and in that moment, Emily felt a flicker of hope amid the deep wounds of her heart. On Saturday evening, Emily approached the gate of her grandfather's mansion, her legs feeling heavy as if weighed down by lead beneath her elegant black cocktail dress. The dress hugged her figure, but her heart pounded as if it might burst from her chest, anxiety surging like ocean waves in a stormy night. She pressed the doorbell, its chime ringing out like the opening note of a play about to begin. Inside, her family was already gathered. Her father, Jacob, stood near the fireplace, his face betraying a hint of unease, like someone unexpectedly called out in a crowd. Her mother, Hannah, sat stiffly in an armchair, hands clasped tightly, her anxious eyes resembling a caged bird, and Victoria, her usually glamorous younger sister, now hung her head, her striking blue eyes glinting with unmistakable guilt. Jacob stepped forward, offering a forced smile. "It's been a while, Emily." "Yes, it has," she replied curtly, her voice cold as a winter breeze sweeping through Houston. An awkward silence descended, heavy like the air before a downpour. At that moment, Christian entered, his demeanor solemn in a sleek black suit, like an old general preparing for battle. "Everyone take a seat," he declared, his voice booming like a church bell in the dead of night. They obeyed without protest, arranging themselves around the long dining table draped in white silk, candlelight flickering off the elegant crystal glasses. Christian raised his wine glass, his sharp gaze sweeping over each face. "Before we toast, I have something to say," he began, his tone deep as a river flowing through time. He stood tall, hands resting lightly on the table, exuding an aura like a living statue. "For years I've cherished this family's honor, preserving honesty and dignity like precious gems. But tonight I must reaffirm those values." He looked at Emily, his eyes gentle yet resolute, then turned to Hannah, Jacob, and Victoria, his voice icy. "I know what you've done to Emily, pushing her out of this family, weaving lies, wounding her heart." Hannah paled, her lips trembling as if to protest, but Christian raised a hand, cutting her off. "Quiet, Hannah." Her voice quivered, frail as a stifled breeze. "I don't want excuses," he said sternly. "This isn't what I taught you." He stepped to Emily's side, placing a thin but warm hand on her shoulder. "Emily Lauren is the most honest, hard-working, and admirable person in this family. Her success comes not from anyone else, but from her own sweat and tears." Tears silently rolled down Emily's cheeks, hot like the first raindrops of the season. Christian returned to the table, his voice thundering. "Tonight I've decided. Emily will inherit my entire estate and business." The room shook as if hit by an earthquake. Hannah gasped, clutching her chest as if about to faint. Jacob half rose from his chair, eyes wide with shock. Victoria sat frozen, her face pale as wax. "Dad, what do you mean?" Hannah asked, her voice trembling like an autumn leaf. "It's perfectly clear," Christian replied, calm as a still lake. "After I'm gone, the Lauren family fortune and control of the real estate company will belong to Emily. This is final, and the legal documents are complete." Emily stared at her grandfather, stunned, her heart flooded with emotions, from disbelief to gratitude, like a lost traveler suddenly spotting a lighthouse. "This isn't a punishment," Christian said, his gaze sweeping the family, "but a responsibility entrusted to the worthy." He raised his glass, a rare smile gracing his lips. "To Emily Lauren, my granddaughter, and the future of the Lauren family." Emily shakily lifted her glass, the clink of crystal ringing through the stillness, a silent oath between two kindred spirits. A week later, in the spacious boardroom of Lauren Real Estate, Emily sat amid stacks of documents, holding a freshly printed business card still smelling of ink. Emily Lauren, Chief Executive Officer. She still felt like she was living in a dream, everything too surreal. A knock sounded and Christian stepped in, his smile warm as spring sunshine. "Settling in?" he asked playfully. "Little by little," Emily replied, honest as always. "I still have a lot to learn about real estate." "I trust your judgment and ability," Christian said, sitting across from her, his eyes alight with faith. "You excelled in advertising, and I believe you'll bring fresh energy here." Emily nodded, her gaze drifting out the window to Houston's towering skyscrapers standing proud. "What about Dad and Victoria?" she asked, a trace of worry in her voice. Christian sighed, his face briefly clouding. "They're adjusting. Jacob's still in sales as before, and Victoria started as a financial assistant last week." "Is that okay?" Emily couldn't hide her concern. "They need time to face the truth," he replied, his tone low like waves on a shore. "Starting today, I'll give you full access to the accounting records and transaction history. Understanding the company's past is crucial." From then on, Emily split her time between her advertising firm and Lauren Real Estate, like a tightrope walker balancing two worlds. Her meticulousness and analytical mind quickly proved their worth. She poured over 5 years of financial records, cross-checking every figure and transaction like a detective hunting clues. 3 weeks later, late one night, as the office lights cast her solitary shadow on the wall, Emily was still immersed in documents. She frowned, muttering, "That's odd." The computer screen displayed the accounting system, and she dug deeper, cross-referencing bank statements, deposit and withdrawal logs, client transactions. Finally, a pattern emerged like an ink stain on white paper. Over the past 3 years, money had been steadily siphoned from the company, funneled into shadowy, hard-to-trace accounts. Her heart raced, hands trembling as she scribbled notes and printed data, her blood running cold. Further investigation revealed those accounts were tied to personal investments by her father, Jacob, and even Victoria. "Unbelievable," she whispered, shoving the papers into her bag, her mind reeling like a storm. She stood, striding quickly to the door, resolved to tell her grandfather immediately. The truth, a double-edged sword both liberating and painful, awaited her final confrontation. The next morning, gentle sunlight filtered through the silk curtains in Christian's study at the mansion, casting a golden glow over the room like nature's belated consolation. Emily sat across from her grandfather, her trembling hands placing a thick stack of documents on the ancient oak table, the faint scent of old paper rising like the breath of the past. "Grandpa, I found it," she said, her voice soft but firm like a hammer striking stone. "Do you have proof?" Christian asked, his face stern as a seasoned judge, his sharp eyes glinting with a mix of suspicion and concern. "Yes, it's all here," Emily replied, opening the folder with the care of someone who had just unearthed a treasure, or rather a ticking time bomb. Dad and Victoria siphoned nearly $2 million from the company over the past 3 years. They overcharged clients, fabricated expenses, and falsified transaction records. Everything's documented, bank receipts, internal emails, all of it. She spread the papers out like a chessboard, each piece a stab at the family's trust. Christian remained silent, so long that the air in the room seemed to thicken. He closed his eyes, his bony hands gripping the chair arms, anger and disappointment etched into every wrinkle. "I was blind," he finally spoke, his voice low like a death knell. "My daughter and granddaughter. What an unbelievable betrayal. What will you do?" Emily asked quietly, her eyes like a still lake awaiting a tidal wave. Christian stood, walking slowly to the window, his silhouette against the glass like a somber painting. "I considered legal action," he said, his tone tinged with hesitation. "But that would be like airing our dirty laundry for the world to see, exposing the family's shame." He turned back, his eyes blazing with resolve. "Instead, I'll call another family meeting. This time I'm summoning everyone, the entire Lauren and Jacob clan, cousins included, about 30 people. The truth must come out, for the sake of our honor and future." Emily's eyes widened, stunned as if she'd just heard a declaration of war. "Everyone," she murmured, picturing the sprawling family gathered in this mansion, like a tragicomedy nearing its final act. "Yes," Christian nodded, his voice hard as tempered steel. "They need to know, and I'll do it properly." A week later, the mansion buzzed like a disturbed beehive, filled with chatter and curious glances from relatives arriving from far and wide. For the first time in years, the grand house brimmed with life, yet the atmosphere hung heavy like the calm before a storm. Emily sat beside her grandfather, her back straight as an oak in a field, her heart a tangle of anxiety and resolve. Across from her, Jacob and Victoria stared down, their hands clasped tightly as if clinging to a shred of fragile hope. Her father, once imposing in his everyday gray suit, now appeared a trembling shadow. Victoria's golden hair, usually proud and regal, hung loose, hiding her red-rimmed eyes. After dinner, as the silver plate still carried the lingering aroma of steak, Christian stood, clinking his glass with a sharp, fateful chime. "Dear members of the Lauren family," he began, his tone formal as if reciting a manifesto, "today I've gathered you at a critical crossroads for our lineage. My life is nearing its end, but before I go, I want to ensure a worthy future for this family." He gestured to Emily, who rose, her legs shaky but her gaze unwavering from her grandfather. "I formally declare Emily Lauren the next chairman of Lauren Real Estate," he said, his whisper resonating like thunder in the silent room. Murmurs rippled through like waves, but Christian raised a hand, silencing them. "However, there's something you all need to know first," he continued, his eyes slowly scanning each face. from aged aunts and uncles to curious young cousins. Recent investigations have uncovered a painful truth. Company funds were embezzled. The room fell into a deathly silence, as if all air had been sucked out. "Jacob, Victoria," he called, his voice cold as ice. "Stand up." They rose trembling. Jacob tried to maintain composure, but his shaking hands betrayed him, while Victoria bowed her head, tears falling like shattered pearls. "You've betrayed the trust of the Lauren family," Christian said, holding the folder aloft like a verdict. "Here's the proof. Evidence that you diverted company money into your own pockets, falsified records and deceived us all." "Wait, it's a misunderstanding," Jacob blurted, his voice desperate like a drowning man grasping at straws. "You'll have your chance to explain," Christian replied, calm but cutting as a blade. "But evidence doesn't lie." From the corner, Hannah stared at her husband and daughter, her face pale as paper. "Is it true?" Her voice quivered on the verge of breaking. Jacob stayed silent, while Victoria only sobbed, speechless. "This is my judgment," Christian declared, his voice ringing like a gavel in a final trial. "Jacob and Victoria are expelled from Lauren Real Estate effective today. Emily will assume full control." The room erupted in a clamor, relatives exchanging looks of shock and disbelief, like an audience witnessing a dramatic climax. Emily stood still, her heart heavy with the irony of fate. The family that once sidelined her was now cast out by her hand. Yet no thrill of victory surged within her, only a weighty sensation. Justice had been served, but her heart still stung as if rubbed with salt. As the crowd dispersed, leaving the room empty with flickering candles nearly spent, Emily looked at her grandfather and whispered, "Grandpa, was it worth it?" Christian offered a sad smile, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, because truth is always worth it, no matter how bitter. You'll guide this family out of darkness, like the light I always hoped for." Emily nodded, her eyes blurring with tears, knowing the journey ahead wasn't just about running a company, but mending the deep fractures of a broken family. Houston's summer sunlight sparkled like glittering diamonds, reflecting off the towering glass windows of Lauren Real Estate's new building, where the bustling energy of preparing for the one-year anniversary celebration filled the hallways. Emily stood by the window, her eyes quietly taking in the sprawling city before her. Skyscrapers reaching proudly into the sky, the endless flow of traffic like the pulsing veins of the urban landscape. Over the past year, her life had turned a new page, spinning like the wheel of fate, transforming her from a passionate advertising designer into the leader of a real estate empire. "Everything's ready, Madam Chairman." Jennifer, her youthful secretary with a smile as bright as a sunflower, stepped in, her cheerful voice pulling Emily from her reverie. She turned, offering a warm smile tinged with gratitude. "Thank you. Has Grandpa arrived yet?" "He's waiting in the lobby, and almost everyone's here." Emily took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing as if shedding an invisible burden. "Let's go," she told herself, stepping into the elevator with a heart full of contemplation. As the metal doors closed, her mind drifted back over the past year. A journey akin to walking a tightrope between two peaks. After her father and sister's fraud was exposed like light piercing the darkness, Emily had bravely set aside the creative fire that once burned within her, pouring all her energy into resurrecting Lauren Real Estate from the ashes. At first, she was a lone soldier on a battlefield, struggling to regain trust in an industry where skeptical eyes cut like knives. But with steely integrity and a fresh approach like a spring breeze, she gradually turned the tide. Now Lauren Real Estate didn't just survive. It thrived, boasting a 20% growth over the previous year, reclaiming its place as a respected name in the field. The elevator dinged, the doors slid open, and Emily stepped into the main lobby. Christian stood there, his tall, lean frame still commanding despite leaning on a cane, his silver hair gleaming under the lights like a halo around an aging king. Beside him was Hannah, her mother, dressed in an elegant pale blue gown, her face bearing traces of tension like someone who just weathered an emotional storm. "Mom," Emily called softly, her voice gentle yet tinged with hesitation. "Thank you for coming," Hannah replied, her smile forced, like a faint moon behind clouds. Reconciling with her mother hadn't been easy. After separating from Jacob, Hannah had persistently sought to mend their bond, her apologies echoing like a mournful song in the rain. Emily had once built a cold wall to protect herself, but time, like water smoothing stone, gradually softened her heart, opening it bit by bit, like a flower budding after a long winter. "You've nurtured a remarkable company," Christian said, wrapping an arm around her shoulder, his voice warm like a hearth fire on a cold night. "All thanks to you, Grandpa," Emily smiled, her eyes shining with trust. At the venue, clients and employees had gathered, their laughter mingling with the crisp clink of wine glasses. On the walls, models and blueprints of new projects were displayed like birds heralding a bright future for Lauren Real Estate. Each line a promise, each color a dream. When it was time for the speech, Christian took the stage, his steps slow but steady, his cane tapping the floor like the beat of a grand overture. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice resonating like a bronze bell, "thank you all for being here today. 1 year ago, I made a decision that altered this family's fate, and now I know I wasn't wrong." He gestured for Emily to join him, and she stepped forward, her heart pounding but her head held high. Applause erupted like waves crashing on a shore, warm and genuine, bringing a tear to her eye. After the speech, as the party buzzed with small talk and soft music, Emily found a quiet corner to rest, her wine glass glinting under the lights. Hannah approached unexpectedly, her steps hesitant as if walking on thin ice. "I heard from Victoria," she whispered, her voice low as if afraid of being overheard. "She still hasn't recovered from her broken engagement." Emily nodded, her heart stirring slightly. Victoria's fiancé's family had quietly withdrawn after the fraud scandal broke, like birds fleeing a nest before a storm. "What did you tell her?" she asked. "That actions have consequences," Hannah replied, her eyes sad but resolute. A quiet understanding passed between them, like a river finding its banks after wandering astray. "And Dad?" Emily pressed, her voice light as a breeze. "I heard he's working for a small real estate firm in another state." Hannah shrugged, her tone flat as if recounting a distant tale. "We won't get back together, I think." Emily gazed out the window, where the sunset draped Houston in a vivid velvet curtain of red, lending the city a somber beauty. The anger that once blazed within her had cooled, replaced by quiet acceptance and a resolve to move forward. "A new beginning," she murmured as if to herself. "Yes, for all of us," Hannah nodded, a fragile spark of hope in her eyes. Emily smiled at her mother, a smile as gentle as a swallow gliding across the sky. The future remained an unwritten book, but she believed in the path she'd chosen. A path free of hidden truths and invisible knives. She stood there, bathed in the radiant sunset, strong like a lighthouse amid the sea, ready to guide herself and those she loved through the days ahead. And you, the wonderful companions of this story. If you've journeyed with me through the emotional highs and lows of the Lauren family, from silent tears to faint glimmers of hope, please leave a like. It's like offering me a warm cup of coffee in the fading afternoon, fueling me to tell more profound tales. Don't forget to subscribe, like marking a favorite book on your shelf, so you won't miss the next dramatic and meaningful chapters. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being part of this journey.